Alright, you guys, so I decided to take a game from the recent video. I wanted to do a breakdown because I've seen a lot of comments of people with rightful confusion regarding still kind of piecing the team together, figuring out kind of the thought process, and just overall like learning the team. I think like doing videos like these will, kind of clear up some of that confusion, hopefully. But yeah, I wanted to pretty much kind of pick one of the best games out of their most recent video and just fully dive deep into it. And since we're kind of looking over the game afterward, I will kind of be able to explain my thoughts a lot better. So here right away, we are in team preview. So in best of one, when you're in champion tier, especially towards like the end of the season, but when you're in champion tier and you can just scroll through the top 300 players, it's very easy to know who is who, especially if you have played them in the past, or in like an hour ago, a day ago, right? You recognize their trainer, you recognize what they're using, right? A lot of times typical players will just use the same team throughout the entire season with like minimal changes or swaps to the team. So it's very easy to recognize who you're playing against, and it's also a very common strategy in best of one to remember that information, right? Because if you guys have seen both of the rank videos I've uploaded, you could see that Washi will say like, oh, this might be this person, or right. So it's knowing who you're playing against is actually like somewhat of a strategy that you're able to kind of keep that information to yourself, and then kind of, if you end up playing them again, you'll be like, oh, I remember this Geo, like he, typical approach is like instant Sylveon, right? And you have these little mental notes that you keep when you play a certain player on Champion Ladder. So, and when you're scrolling through the top 300 like players, like and you're used to doing this, right? It sounds like it's something that it's hard to remember, like a concept that sounds kind of like small compared to what it really is. It's actually a really like nice piece of information that you should always use to your advantage when you're climbing the ladder, like when you're in champion tiers. So going into this game, this is Giovanni Cischke, if that's how you pronounce his last name. I think it is. Apologies if I said it wrong, but this is not the first time I played Gio. I've played him before in Scarlet and Violet, but that's kind of irrelevant. But Gio's is a really good player, and a lot of times, like some of the best players in the world play the most optimal, right? They don't make these hard reads all the time, even on ladder, right? So Gio is a player who I played against multiple times now, where he has showed that he makes very strong plays, but he makes plays that make sense. So he's a player you can make predictions on and count on and have a higher chance of them working out in your favor because he makes very optimal plays. So I wanted to kind of brief and preface that first. So into preview here, Frostlass is kind of awkward. It's good into Chomp and Venusaur, but the problem is he's typically always going instant in this matchup because instant's really good into Frostlass, good into Gambit, can potentially intimidate our Sneasler, obviously our Basket Legion, and Garchomp. So instant's a really good piece on his end, and he has no reason not to not bring Zard as well. So both of those just make Frostlass like really, really hard to bring. And even if he brings Chomp, it doesn't really change much about Frostlass being good because he has slower weather, meaning he'll have weather control. If we were to lead Frostlass, it could be really bad. If we were to even bring him the back, it could be really bad because Instinct can wall it pretty well. So I always like to find like the mega. I feel like, especially for like beginner players, I think like if you're running dual mega, definitely deciphering between your mega is probably the first part with team preview and how to kind of dissect team preview. So that's Frostlass out of the way, right? We can cross that off. So Dragonite's actually really good here because Zard Venusaur is just a really high variance but super strong lead. Like if they have sleep powder, it's a little bit high variance but really strong. So what that means is Dragonite pretty much plays really well defensively into Zard, Venusaur, Incineroar, right? And will always win the 1v1 into Scarf, Life Orb, Roselli, like it usually always wins 1v1 into Garchomp because you have multi-skill, right? So it's a pretty reliable Pokemon, and also it has some pretty nice special damage output into Pokemon like Toxapex. So that is our Mega that we are guaranteed to, or that is our Pokemon that we are guaranteed to bring into this matchup. Going from there, when you bring Dragonite into a set or into a game, Sneasler is typically just like a really good like supportive utility piece. Your common leads on the team are typically Sneasler, Dragonite, Sneasler, Frostlass, right? Like those are your very standard leads into a lot of compositions. In this case, Sneasler Dragonite covers pretty much everything into his team and is a pretty safe and strong lead into Gio's team. But the problem is if he leads Sylveon, then our better option would be King Gambit. So those are our two lead options. If they lead Sylveon plus Incineroar, Gambit's always better. If they lead anything but Sylveon, then Dragonite's actually a really good lead. So if they were to lead Zard Venusaur, if they were to lead like Instant Zard, or even like Zard Garchomp, Dragonite's always better. Yes, so knowing that, and also knowing that Washi had played Gio just 30 minutes prior to me playing him, we had the information that Gio had went Instant Sylveon, and he had won the game against Washi, and with that information in mind, Gio really has no reason to not do this lead again because it's safe. So that's why we decided to go King Gambit. We did talk about that in the video a little bit. Like that's why I typically I'll ask Washi like, okay, so what did you lead into Gio when you played him? That way we can kind of get an idea of how to adjust when we're playing him again. So yes, so Sneasler King Gambit, we got the lead perfectly correct actually, and then having Dragonite and Basket Legion in the back was perfect. So the reason why we don't bring Garchomp here is because it could be okay, but we wanted to have late game Blast Specs into Toxapex if he decided to bring it. We wanted to have a way to be able to do like a late game damage into Sylveon. So like Blast Specs into Sylveon, Wave Crash and Sun, depending on the Zard spread, can actually guarantee or potentially get a one-hit knockout. So we have a lot more options with Basque, and we felt that Garchomp could easily get out pivot with like Intimidate. His own Garchomp is Scarf, so we already had that information. So we just felt that Basket Legion was a better pick for the fourth Pokemon. So that's exactly how we decided on our lead, and that's fully dissecting it down. So Sneasler, King Gambit with Dragonite and Basket Legion in the back. So hopefully that kind of clears up the lead thought process a little bit, at least specifically into this matchup. So here we are with Sneasler, King Gambit, and Instant Sylveon. So okay, so into this board, into this turn one, this is a pretty awkward turn one because there's just so many options right away. Typically, like, it's always good as a player to like just look through your Pokemon, look through their Pokemon, what your potential options are. Typically turn ones and champions, like when we have no reason to really switch anything here, so that option's kind of already eliminated, right? We have the faster fake out, so typically there's no reason to make a switch turn one. It doesn't really gain us any ground. Obviously we could go for a play like fake out Sylveon, swap King Gambit into Basket Legion could be a potential option. But the problem is that if the Instinct were to go for Parting Shot into Sneasler and then goes Zard, it could be kind of awkward because then we don't have, they can just Mega. So we were kind of covering all of our options, and we did not want him to Parting Shot Protect turn one, go into Zard, and if we were to swap out King Gambit into Basket Legion, then he would be able to Mega, have Sun Up, reduce our damage, and then Basket Legion would just kind of be sitting on the field. So here we have a lot of options. Our lead's pretty nice. I think he was definitely expecting Dragonite, or at least like this is more of a standard lead on his end as well. So it's a pretty safe lead. So here we have options of, do we go for Fake Out Attack, which is our safe play. Fake Out Sylveon, typically low kick, like fighting move into Incineroar is like the safest play. Or do we Feint Iron Head? And Feint Iron Head here is risky because if he decides to just fake out with Incineroar, then we could just lose the game. If he were to fake out King Gambit, we would just gain no ground. He would fake out our King Gambit, we would get tiny to chip off on Sylveon, and then we would literally just probably lose the game because he would get a ton of damage up on the board right away. And we would just be in a really awkward, like terrible position into turn 2. Yeah, even if he were to Hyper Voice, it would still be really bad because then he could just Hyper Voice again. Because Sylveon outspeeds King Gambit, and Sneasler is -1, so we would not be able to CC the instant for a KO, and we would not be able to Dire Claw the Sylveon for a KO. Into this turn, I really wanted to feint Iron Head. Washi, it's not like Washi decided to be, or Washi was like, oh, like don't go for that or anything. It was more just the fact that like into turn 1 in a game where you don't necessarily have to get that risky turn 1. It's a very high risk reward play that is very unnecessary. So yeah, so that's kind of the thought process here. Our plays are typically fake out Sylveon low kick instant, which at +1 max attack typically would get the KO, especially after Flare Blitz recoil if they were to attack, which he did here. But if he were to parting shot, then the low kick would go into whatever's coming in, typically probably Garchomp or Charizard. If Charizard comes in, he takes a lot of damage, and then the following turn we have a lot of options because Sylveon had just gone for Protect. So yeah, so Sylveon detects here, and he attacks. Pretty safe play on his end because he knows he can always get a guaranteed Flare Blitz off, and he knows that we should always be faking out the Sylveon because he can just KO us with like Hyper Beam. Also throughout this entire game, we had no idea what his like 4th move was. I had never played Geo yet on ladder. I had played into like other players like Eric Rios, Marco Furo, a bunch of really strong Japanese players, but I had never personally played Geo, and Washi didn't have all the information from when he played him, right? You only get so much. So when Washi knew he obviously they're gonna have Hyper Voice, he never went for Hyper Beam into Washi, but he also never went for Yawn. So I think he showed Hyper Voice and Quick Attack, or he just showed Hyper Voice and Detect, and that's all the information we really had. So we didn't really know what his other 1 to 2 moves were. Sorry. Instant living here wasn't like too much of a surprise. I mean, obviously like we thought we would get the KO, but instant living at the time was just more like, I was like, oh, but it's pretty normal. Like if he's plus defense nature, it's not, I don't say it's in his favor to live, but it's not like a high chance for us to kill either, if that makes sense. So this was okay with me, I think, especially for the fact that into this next turn, he has to play slightly defensive with the instant slot, and Sylveon is under pressure from a potential double. So here, we have a few options. So it is pretty obvious Sylveon's going to switch out. I think like Geo knows that Sucker Dire Claw is pretty obvious. Like he knows that we can get the KO in instant. Typically when you're in a position like this, when you have a KO at your hands, it's really obvious that like they're going to play defensive with this slot. Typically hard swapping out since instant typically don't run Protect. But Geo actually had Protect, so that made it a little bit interesting for us. But it was very obvious that Sylveon was switching out, but our safe place is just to always double it because we don't really like King Gambit's dead to anything like Hyper Voice, Flare Blitz, obviously. So our play here would be and we don't really want to switch anything into a Hyper Voice, right? We have Basket Legion and Dragonite in the back, so our safest play is just to double. Even though it's obviously switching out, we get some damage into something. We were actually at the time expecting it to be Garchomp into this slot or Toxapex, but obviously he decided to leave out Toxapex and brought in Zard actually, which was actually pretty interesting because I think like at the time I didn't understand why he brought in Zard over Garchomp, because he knows that we're always going like Sucker on this turn, and he knows we're either going fighting or poison move, but we're never going fighting move into Sylveon. So I just thought it was pretty interesting that he brought in Zard on this turn rather than Garchomp. So, and instant protects. So this is when Washi remembered, obviously, that instant had protect. I didn't know, obviously, that's something that like instant typically never have unless you're playing like Perish. So yeah, that was something I wasn't expecting on my end. Here on this turn, we have a few options. Our safest play is to get guaranteed Sucker into Zard, and it'll bring it down to like red HP. because we are +1, and then killing the instant slot with CC. But the problem with this play is if he has guard trump on the back, which he did, and swaps it in, then we lose our sash. We are then at -1 with Sneasler, and then that means if Zard hits both Mons with Heat Wave, he actually gets a double KO. I knew this, like, while discussing our play here. I was definitely expecting Instant to swap in a Chomp here. It's a pretty obvious switch, I think, considering he just went Protect and Instant kind of just doesn't do anything here. And he doesn't have to give us the KO. I think he also wanted to preserve Instant because he couldn't confirm our Becca in the back because we didn't lead Dragonite. So I think he was still slightly unsure if we had Dragonite or Frostlass in the back. So I think he wanted to preserve Instant, knowing that even at this HP range, Frostlass can't get the KO. So my play that I really wanted to go for on this turn that I felt that was somewhat safe was Dire Claw Sucker into Zard, and I actually think that this was the correct play if we get the turn correct. Looking back, I think losing both Mons on this turn a little early before we get a KO put us in a position where we needed some luck to win at the end. We needed the first turn wake up, and the Rock Slide dodge on Mega Dragonite was also very lucky. So getting both of those was pretty lucky, and I think if we were able to either keep Sneasler alive for endgame for having a consistent damage option into Sylveon would have been really nice. So I think my play here probably would have put us in a really good position, knowing that we keep Gambit alive and we get we get a free KO on his Zard without it doing anything. So here, his two plays that he could have made here it would be a really hard call for him to make. I think he's always attacking with Zard, knowing that we're -1 with Sneasler. I think he could have went Protect, but I think it was less likely for him to always protect the Zard slot. I definitely thought he was going to swap Instant for sure. I think he had no reason for us to just get the KO. So yeah, I think at the time here too, Washi wasn't understanding wasn't fully in understanding the gravity of him getting a double KO here, because probably needed to have Sneasler still for Sylveon / Incineroar in the end game. Gambit has done its job already, so I think we were going to lose a Mon on this turn, typically Gambit, but I think if we were to lose Gambit, Sneasler keeps its sash, and then we bring in Dragonite, we're in a slightly better position keeping 3 Pokemon alive rather than being out on our final 2. So okay, so here fortunately because we do get a free switch into 2, our position here is actually not terrible because we have Instant low, Zard's in range of Aqua Jet obviously, and then Garchomp is obviously in range of Dragon Pulse. So we're actually not in a terrible position. The only problem is now Gio's trying to figure out how he can get Sylveon in position to fully close out the game and get enough damage across the board. I think Gio knew that if he was able to break multi-scale on Dragonite before bringing Sylveon back in, he probably wins, because we're then in range of Hyper Voice after Rock Slide damage, I think, or it would be really close. It would just depend on his spread. But I think Gio is very comfortable with this endgame if he were to have hit Rock Slide into Dragonite. So that was pretty lucky for us to dodge, and that definitely was something that brought us back into the game. So once again, we go for the pretty safe play here. This was another turn I wanted to make a read, because there actually is a read we can make here. It was a less obvious read. So this read would have been me going for a normal attack into Charizard, so Wave Crash or Last Respects, probably Wave Crash, and then D-Pulse into Garchomp. And what this would have done for us is that we get the KO on Instant coming in. He loses his Fake Out Pressure. He still has Zard in the back that's in range of Aqua Jet, and then he's forced to bring in either Sylveon. He's pretty much forced to bring in Sylveon and then keep low HP Zard in the back. It would have put him on the back foot actually if we were able to make the read this turn, but I think it was pretty risky because his Zard is too low at the point where he might as well be thinking oh, if I land Rock Slide into Dragonite, I'm just gonna attack. I'm just gonna double attack here, right? So we weren't fully sure if Dragonite was going to attack or switch. So yeah, this is where he gets this is where we get the dodge, which was just honestly amazing for us. I think if he were to have hit, we probably just always lose. Yeah, if he were to hit, I think we always lose, because I'm pretty sure Dragonite would still drop to Hyper Voice. I think it depends on how much special attack he has. He had Yawn and Quick Attack, so I don't think he was definitely not max special attack. He was definitely at maybe like 20 to hit the bump. He's definitely not max special attack, so it would have been really close with Rock Slide plus Hyper Voice, but I think like us dodging that made it got us back into the game a little bit more. So here, I think it was like, this is another like somewhat risky play we had to make to get back into the game, because Instant could just fake out the Dragonite, and then we would take Hyper Voice, we would live, but the problem is like he's guaranteed to get like at least one more Hyper Voice off, like easily. So we were just kind of, it was a risky play in the sense where like we knew he wasn't going for fake out here, because if he goes fake out into Dragonite and goes Hyper Voice, we get the Last Respects off into Sylveon. We'll see how much damage it does, right? We're only -1 at the time, so if Last Respects does like over half, I think we're guaranteed to win the game. So I think Gio was trying to get Sylveon in the position where he gets Bask in at -2 and then gets fake out pressure so Sylveon can close up the end game. And that was what he was trying to do. And that's also why he went defensive with Sylveon this turn and went Detect and decided not to fake out. So we got the turn half right, or I guess we got the turn fully correct, because I expected him to predict like the double protect on the fake out turn. So we kind of get it right. We're like, okay, he switches into Zard. We get the KO on Zard here and Sylveon Detect. So I think this was the correct play on his end. I don't think that there was a better play here. Our Dragonite should always naturally outspeed his Charizard. So the problem with us getting that, if he were to not protect Sylveon and click Hyper Voice plus Fake Out, we would be in a position where then we can just click Last Respects plus Heat Wave the following turn, and then threaten a KO on Sylveon, and then we would always win with Zard plus Instant Endgame. So, okay, so this turn, we're getting closer to the end of the game. There's a few mind games here, because we had showed Gio that we did not protect on the previous turn where he had fake out pressure, right? Obviously last turn when he swapped out Incineroar, he had fake out pressure where he could have easily went fake out into Dragonite plus Hyper Voice. We had shown that we had gone for double attack, and in this position, so it's really awkward that he has protect, and I'll kind of explain why, because how this turn plays out is really, or how this turn into next turn plays out is really awkward, and I was really confused when Washi wanted, so this was a turn where me and Washi were kind of debating whether or not we should just protect or attack with Dragonite, but I think actually our best play here was double protect. The reason why is because it covers for if he decides to Hyper Voice / Yawn into the Basket Legion slot, and covers for obviously him breaking our multi-skill and flinching our Dragonite with Fake Out. So the reason why double protect into the following turn is only awkward into Gio is because he has protect on Incineroar, and he also has the option to protect on Sylveon. So into the next turn, it would be really awkward because he could say, okay, I can protect Instant, click Hyper Voice / Yawn, or I can detect Sylveon and try to get a dark move off into Basket Legion, right? So protect in this endgame actually would have been really awkward to kind of have to figure out into the second turn if we were to double protect. So that was the only thing I was really thinking about like at the time, but I wasn't really like speaking and vocalizing it. But I think like in this position, that was definitely like what I was thinking about. So a lot of times like players, like especially like when me or Washi are talking about like things in the game, we're not fully saying everything, but we're still thinking it, if that makes sense. So that's kind of why breakdowns I think are pretty informational, because you're able to get the full insight on what we're thinking after the game. So here Washi's telling me to double attack, which to me never makes sense, because if he fakes out Dragonite and goes Hyper Voice, we just take unnecessary damage on this turn. So in Washi's favor, I think if we were to protect, we either double protect, right? Or we don't protect at all. But he had went for Yawn into Basket Legion this turn anyway. So this protect was always correct, because he would get a free break on our multi-skill. So this protect was always the correct play. And then I think the deciding play here would have been, do we protect or not with Basket Legion, right? It's such a simple like end game. It looks like it's such a simple end game, but it's really not, because Sylveon puts on a lot of pressure, and Yawn gave him a lot of options to win in the end game. He had fully gotten our Bask in, or he had fully gotten Sylveon in the position he wanted, where like Dragonite can't really touch it after Sun's gone. Like Heat Wave will only do like, you know, like 30%, and Basket Legion's about to fall asleep and we're -2. So it's honestly like really awkward. And what I was I think like the reason why I didn't want to take I didn't want to lose our multi-skill was because if we are in a situation like this where Basket Legion falls asleep, we need to be able to keep Dragonite alive so that Basket Legion can, if we were to wake up on the first turn, we would have the HP to do so, right? If he were to KO our Dragonite and then click Hyper Voice again, we would actually die. We would get KO'd. So hopefully that kind of explains this. This was like the probably the most like crucial turn of the game, because I think like if we double protected, we would then just have to get like the mind game right if like instant were to protect. But yeah, I think like it's just like a little awkward. But I think if we were to double protect, then the following turn we can just click Dragon Pulse into Instant and Last Respects into Sylveon, and I think that was actually our guaranteed win. Because yeah, I think that was actually our guaranteed win, because even if Instant protects and Sylveon attacks or clicks Yawn, he would need a double on Instant for Dragon Pulse, and he would need to get like a double on Instant and then Detect with Sylveon. So it would have been, I think like double protect was always our safe play. We made like the half correct play where we protect Dragonite and then get the guaranteed KO on Instant where we know he's not going to protect. But yeah, like it was just like this really, really stupid mind game where like we had to end up getting lucky at the end and just getting a first turn wake. So it's like a 50% chance. I mean, you know, you're guaranteed to sleep one full turn but not two. So I mean, like it wasn't like insanely lucky. Obviously, like there's some luck involved, right? So the fact that we got the first turn was like really nice. Yeah, but yeah, I think that honestly like kind of covers the game, because at this point like we're not in range of quick attack. I think even if he crits, we weren't in range. Yeah, I don't think we were in range of quick attack either. It would have been close. So yeah, that was honestly the game. I think this was like the perfect game to pick as well, because it was the longest for one, and it was just into like a really good player. I mean, Gio is literally a world champion. Like I said, this is not the first time I played him. This is the first time I played him on ranked in champions, but I've played him multiple times in Scarlet and Violet. So like in Victory Road, we played in Swiss, where I ended up taking a loss game 3. It was a really tight set. Yeah, we played each other in best of 3 and best of 1 a few different times. So it was honestly just like a really good game. Every time I play Gio, he's just such a good player, and like I was honestly like, when this game was over, I was just not just happy with the fact that I recorded it, but like just really content with how fun like the game was, because like he's a really good player, and I can always expect like a really good game or games when I play Gio. He just plays very optimal, and he plays correct, but will make reads if he has to. So he just plays really optimal. So that's something I really like. So hopefully this video covered like, you know, a good amount of information and gave you guys some more intel on my thought process with best of 1 and how to dissect leads. So hopefully this was pretty informational for you guys. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy the video.